Hi, I'm Ed Parcaut, your host of Inner Edison. And what I'd like you to take away from today's show is our greatest accomplishments come from our greatest defeats. And today's guest is Rob Angel. Let's welcome him and get to know his story. Hi, Rob. How you doing?
Doing really well today. How are you doing?
Good. Rob, I know your story. I mean, I even have your book, right? You autographed it for me. I appreciate that. Um, that you're so, I mean, you started this when you were 23, and I'm not going to say how old you are now, but it must have changed. I mean, it's unusual for people to start things at 23 that took over their whole life, right? I mean, there are a few people.
Right.
Let's go back to when you're 23 and why did you do this, right? Let's talk about, because I mean, not everybody knows the inventor of Pictionary. You would think they would, but not every. I mean, I didn't until I ran into you and got to know you through all the circles I've been in,
All right.
and so so like listeners will know who you are and the whole journey, if you don't mind.
Sure. I think people know what I did. They just don't know how or who I am.
Right.
Right. So that's
You
okay.
you could walk down the street and they wouldn't bother you, right? Which is
No,
not.
and it's like, everybody kind of thinks that Pictionary just appeared out of thin air or was a big company that did it, but that's clearly not the case. And so what it was I was always going to be an entrepreneur. I always knew I wanted to work for myself. I didn't want to work for somebody else, but I didn't know what that looked like. So I was looking for the opportunity. Moved in with three buddies after college, and one of them said, "Do you want to play this game that I learned at college? We call it charades on paper." Sure, I didn't know my life was about to change, so was kind of having a bad day. One of my roommates was having a bad day, and we start playing this silly game. We're partnering up, and all of a sudden, we both kind of forgot we were having a bad day. I mean, our energy was up. The things that were bothering us were gone. And I'm kind of looking around the room and everybody is like that. And I'm thinking, if I can get over what's bothering me and he can get over what's bothering him, I want to share this with the world because it was energy, right? It wasn't the game itself. It was the creation, the collaboration, basically the fun that we were having. And so at that point, I said, if I can scale this, I've got a business. And that's where it all started. And that was the genesis. So it wasn't to create a game company. It wasn't to make $1 million. It wasn't to take on the big game companies and disrupt the entire industry. It was to scale this energy, to scale this fun, and then see what happens from there. That was my intention.
And everything else just happened.
Everything else just happened. I mean, it sounds kind of like, come on, Rob, tell us really. But that's really what it was. So if I had said from the beginning, I want to make $1 million, that would have created different decisions, right? That would have made me go a different direction. So instead of that dynamic, I went with, man, I'm going to share this with the world, see what happens. And if it was going to meant to be, great. I wasn't going to turn down $1 million. Make no mistake. But I kept to that philosophy the entire 20 years that I owned Pictionary, and it served me well.
Well, and that's a great way to do business because going into business just to make money is a lonely thing. I mean, then what happens when you make your $1 million? What do you do next, right?
That's the problem. When you have an expectation of making $1 million, well, you've reached that goal. Now what? It's exactly what it is. Right. What happens when your dreams come true? I don't know. Got to have a new dream.
So, right, you got to remake it. Yeah,
you got to remake the dream. So if you have more intangible dreams, you've got more to work with.
Now, I mean, a lot of people go, okay, they think it was an overnight success, right? I mean, everybody thinks like, I mean, you go with UGG, right? Brian Smith. I thought it was overnight success. I didn't know what he went through, and I'm sure you kind of had some things going through. So, what was the process when you got, I'm going to do this with the world? How did you get started? Because a lot of people who want to start as an entrepreneur, they have problems getting started. They don't know how to do it. How did you get started?
Right. I had dinner with Brian last night, as a matter of fact. Yeah, great guy. Yeah. I think like most entrepreneurs, I didn't know how to start. I didn't know where to start. So I didn't start. I was just a waiter, as I told myself. I was just waiting tables. And it was, I think what happens, it's a mystery. All the pieces necessary to make a successful game, all the people I'm going to need, all the business plans. And my brain's exploding. So I broke it down and said, I've just got to get started, right? It's taking that first step, whether it's Pictionary or life in general. So I said, what do I do? Broke it down. to the word list, right? That was the word list was in front of me. I had a dictionary. I didn't have to go drive somewhere and figure it out. So I grabbed a dictionary, pad of paper, and a pencil. I went in the backyard. I'm on this wobbly green chair, and I'm kind of like, sweating a little bit. What do I do? How do I start? You know what? I'm going to write the first word. So I open the dictionary. And the first word that I see, to me, that makes sense intuitively is aardvark. That was it. Aardvark. I mean, I didn't even know what an aardvark was, to be honest with you, but I knew it was an animal. So I write down the word aardvark. And I got to tell you, in that moment, when I wrote down the word aardvark, I mean, I broke into a sweat. I'm kind of jumping around the backyard. My roommates think I'm a little insane. But to me, it was the first step, right? I just gotten started with the game. And it took 2.5 years to write that first word, all the mental gymnastics and all the things, the negativity. And it took 30 seconds to write the second word. And the lesson I learned was, it wasn't that difficult. I spent 2.5 years procrastinating. And for goodness sakes, it took, 3 seconds to write 9 letters? It wasn't that tough. So all this negative self-talk and all these things that prevented me from getting started evaporated just from writing one word. And I think when people do that, you get moving, right? It just becomes a habit. And then I did that for 3 months, writing words. So by the time I was done, I was no longer a waiter. I was a game inventor, right? The habit of writing words. And that's when the mindset changed.
And I think a lot of people have that same mindset where you said it took you 2.5 years. They don't know where to start, so they just don't do it. And it's like the video, it's like podcasts, anything you do, just do it. You're not going to be amazing at it. Just get going, and then you'll figure it out later, right?
I mean, that's, I apologize. I'm stealing this from somebody. Just get started and jump over the cliff and build your wings on the way down, right? If we stop and think, I think most of us, I'm speaking for everybody, I think when we think about the big picture, it's overwhelming. So you break it down, the smallest steps, take that first step, see where it goes. And guess what? What's the worst that could happen? You'll be a success, or you won't like that first step and you go, oh, that was a nice try. I'll go somewhere else. So don't get too caught up in what it looks like on the second step.
Well, that's what, like this episode, the whole podcast I do is about our greatest accomplishments come from our defeats, right? Our greatest defeats. Right. Usually. So you have to do something in order to figure out that's not the way to do it and move on and be okay with that. Now, when you started Pictionary, so you had all the words.
Yeah.
So how did you go from that step to the next step?
I don't know why I'm laughing at that question, by the way.
Why?
Right?
Because you're looking back going, oh, I don't remember. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, no, it's so totally ingrained, as you commented, my book, Game Changer. I had to go through and relive every moment of what was going on. There was no manual for what was next. This was back in 1985, 84. Right. There was no
Google.
There was no Google. So I'm going, now I got the word list. What do I do? Literally, I was like, oh, crap. One step down. What's the next step? For me, it was getting partners and using my intuition, because there was no Google to know where to go. So I said, okay, I know my skill set. I know what I'm good at, marketing, sales, talking, but I'm not very good at running a business. Okay, I can accept that. So I got a partner who could run the business. And I think that was key to my success. And everybody says it. Every lecture, every person that talks, surround yourself with good people and don't be the smartest guy in the room. And it is 1000% true. Without that, Pictionary doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. So you really have to surround yourself with smarter people. And that really comes with getting rid of your ego. Right. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds in that, but
no, I'm good with that, because it's important for people to understand that, because everybody's afraid to give their idea to somebody or bring somebody else on when they're first starting. I'm good with getting in the weeds on this. We can always sell them, you have them buy your book to get the full thing. So it's important to talk about what it was like, right? It's not, because it's huge for people. I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs don't get going at all. I mean, that's why, Inner Edison also Edison's first thing is, most people quit right before they're successful. So let's get into the little weeds there. I'm good with that.
Sure. The one thing that made, and another partner, was three of us. The number one criteria for me, and again, this was, I realized it after the fact. You can find, and I could find somebody to run my business. That's okay. I can go online nowadays. I can find a graphic artist. He was a partner as well. I can find somebody to do that. But the key was that we shared a sense of mission. We were on the same page. We cared about Pictionary. We had each other's back. That was more important than crossing the I's and dotting the T's. That was said backwards, but you get the point.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get into a partnership, whether it's a licensing deal, whether it's physical partners, whether it's buying something, it doesn't matter. When you're in a partnership, when you're on the same page, you have the same mission, you have the same intention, you have the same goals, then what the beauty of what happened was when we got in arguments, and believe me, partners get in arguments. It's just what it is. But whenever we got in fights, we learned the hard way that we're always about Pictionary. What is best for the product? What is best for the business? What is best for our intention? Not what's best for Rob Angel, not what's best for Terry. Because when we would get in these fights, we knew at the end he was fighting for Pictionary. So whoever yelled the loudest was probably right, because his intuition was saying, this is what you got to do. And it's true. You know, you can find all the information, facts and figures and data, and we're overwhelmed with data these days. But ultimately, you just have to make a decision of what feels right. 1 + 1 is still 2, right? Sometimes you got to go, okay, 1 + 1 is still 2. But for us, 1 + 1 + 1, the three partners, equaled 5. Together, we were amazing. And that's because we were on the same page, believed in the same thing. You know, when you're looking for a partner, somebody said, you better like the person, because you're going to wind up having dinner with them 3, 4, 5 nights a week. So if it doesn't feel right, no matter how skills they have, no matter how much money they bring to the table, if it doesn't feel right, move on.
Yeah, I like what Steve Sims says. If the chug test, if you're not going to go have a beer with them, you don't want to deal with them at all. So,
well, Steve is usually whiskey, but I understand the beer.
Yeah. Well, he says that chug test. Yeah. But you're right. It is whiskey for him. It's old fashions.
There you go. Yeah. It's all true. I mean, we did not know from one day to the next. I was 26 years old when I started. We didn't know one day from the next what we were doing and how we were going to do it. But we just kept plugging along. We kept saying, you know what? This feels like the right direction. And the hard part of that is because when you use your intuition, your instinct, your gut feeling, there's no one to blame but you. Right? That's why people don't do it. They say, here's the stats on this decision. Let's do that. Because if it's wrong, oh, well, the stats were wrong. You can hold your head up and you go, that's fine. That's great. But if you're making decisions based on your intention, on your gut, you're the only one to blame. So have the confidence to trust your intuition. Have the confidence that you're making the right choice. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It's okay. You'll live to fight another day. So when you start learning to trust your heart and what you really know to be true, decisions will be easier and they'll be better. You'll be more successful.
All right. So if you don't mind, I want to talk about how did you have your intuitions about your partners that they were so into the game? I mean, right? How did you know that?
I've been asked that question. My voice went up and on. I've been asked that question, and I've kind of analyzed it and tried to figure out, one, they did have the skills I needed. It wasn't just, hey, you're a nice guy, let's try it. So one, they did have the skills I needed. And when I met both of them independently of each other, I just knew. It was the feeling, right? The more the conversations went on, the more we started talking about life, the more we started talking about philosophy, the more we started talking about business, the more comfortable I became that they were the right guys. It takes a little bit. It's not like you meet somebody, oh my gosh. But it took, it took a couple of days, but it was definitely the right decision, following my instinct, following my gut. worked well. I mean, the one time it didn't work. So we hire a national sales manager. We're being very successful in Seattle and we want to expand nationally. And I met this guy and it just, I didn't like the guy that much, but he started talking and he's got these connections and he sold these products and he can make us this much money and he'd get these many sales. And I rode what I felt. And I go, this is the guy. So I talked my partners, because I yelled the loudest, Gary and Gary, into hiring this guy. Well, you know where this is going. Right. I didn't listen to myself because it was based on intuition. It wasn't based on facts. Right. He didn't work out. He never performed. He didn't deliver the product. He didn't give us the connections. And so it was a huge lesson for me to pay attention to how I'm feeling. I didn't want to have beers with him chugging beers with him, using Steve's analogy. And so we lost time. It didn't sink the business, right? You don't want to make decisions. I didn't want to make decisions that were so great that the business would go out of business if I got it wrong. This was one of those times. It cost us 6 months, cost us a few sales, it cost us a few bucks, but I learned my lesson. When it's important, I listen to myself.
So listen to your gut, basically, is what you're saying.
It is. And, everybody says that.
Right.
Oh, listen, trust your instincts. Oh, you know what? It's a lot harder than it sounds. It's a muscle, just like anything else. So when you make a decision, do a little one. My instinct tells me I should turn left instead of right. Okay, great. Then do that. We're going to go around the block. If you're wrong, no big deal. But you've made that decision and see where it goes. So make a lot of little ones. So you're using that muscle. So by the time you really need it and it's really important, you'll be more successful and easier to make those choices.
All right. So you were talking about Seattle. So is that where you started in Seattle? Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so when he didn't work out, how did you go nationally? Right. I mean, because that was 6 months. You still wanted to go nationally. Were you in like just smaller stores? I mean, how did it get started from there? I mean, the partner stuff was amazing. I could go the rest of the show on it, but I want to give a little bit of other stuff. So how did you go from, all right, we're here now, how did you get in the first store? How was that done? That kind of stuff. Because that's not only having the idea and creating I haven't even got into how you manufactured it. How'd you find all that stuff? But how do you get in your first store? It's important. People want to know, how do I get through this process? It's different today, but this was, back in the 80s, like you said, right? Early 90s too. It's different world. I mean,
it was face to face.
Yeah.
I had to walk in the door and say, hi, I'm Rob Angel. I'm a local guy. I invented this game. Let's talk about it. It wasn't online. It wasn't through email. I would literally, because I didn't know what I was doing. I keep saying that, but it's true, right? This game that everybody knows around the world, the biggest selling board game in the world for the last 30 years, started because I had no idea what I was doing. So I literally would take the game, put it under my arm, and I'd walk into every storefront that I could, because we were selling, remember I said earlier, energy and excitement. We weren't selling a game. So instead of going to Toys R Us and Target, which I couldn't access anyway, we decided to disrupt the industry. So I went to Nordstrom. I went to pharmacies. I went to knick-knack stores. I went to a real estate company and gave them some BS line about why they should buy Pictionary, and they did. So we put Pictionary in places where people weren't used to seeing a game. If you wanted a game, then you had to go to Toys R Us. Now you go to Amazon. But back then, if I went to Nordstrom and I saw a Pictionary game, people go, oh, what's this? So it becomes an impulse purchase as opposed to something thought out. I want a game for Christmas. I go to the store. So that was a huge deal for us. And we kind of disrupted the industry. So then all of a sudden, everybody, Milton Bradley, Toys R Us, Worlds of Wonder, everybody's selling to the smaller stores. And that was big for us. It was huge for us. Not following the pack, not following what everybody else told us we should do.
Right. And that's important because you're in a different time. Now you would sell it online. You would, push it to Amazon, sell it through one of their stores. I mean, it's a totally different world. But
It's a
back
different world,
then,
but you still have to have two things. People don't realize this. They go on Kickstarter. I got an idea for a game, right? You have to do two things. One, it has to be a good game. It has to be a good product. It can't be just crap because nobody's going to buy it a second time. Nobody's going to talk about it, right? Word of mouth and social media still count. So it has to be well designed, a good game. And second of all, like these Kickstarter programs, you still have to market it. You can't just put it out on Amazon, cross your fingers, and hope people buy it. You have to market it. You have to do the work. And that's what we did. I would stand at the bottom of the escalator at Nordstrom, in downtown Nordstrom in Seattle, a little table about this big, for hours, 12 hours a day, trying to get people to play Pictionary. So I was out there in their face all the time. And I got to tell you, after 12 hours in the beginning, if I sold 3 games, oh my God, it was fabulous. 3 games, $90. That was it. I thought, man, we're on our way. So those little numbers I remember, but we worked it hard to get that pencil in people's hands.
and that's amazing because the other thing you didn't say that you needed, so you said 2 things. I think there's a third thing. You have to have a good salesman. And you're it. Right? Whether you want to know. Yeah, I mean, because you love the product and you're explaining, and people think sales is bad. Sales is what you have. You have marketing and sales. You have to have both in order to move. So, and you were out there selling the game to people, showing them how to use it and all that. That's sales, and that's important. It's the same thing. I don't want to bring up Brian again, but he was the same way. He was a sales guy, just like you are. And so, if you don't have that in you, it's very difficult to get your product anywhere.
Yeah, Jeff Hoffman, guy who started Priceline. I was listening to him recently. This whole notion of overcoming no. I mean, you don't have to overcome it. They say no, they say no. Learn from it, but it's not the end of the world. I go into a store and they'd say no. I go, okay, your loss. I wouldn't take it personally. I wouldn't get depressed. I wouldn't get sad. I'd go, all right, I'll just change my pitch a little and see what happens on the next store and the next store and the next store. So you can't let defeat, you can't let the no's and the negative get to you because it's not personal. It's about your product. It's about maybe your pitch. You can work on that, but they don't walk in. You don't walk in and the guy goes, oh, I don't like that guy. I don't care what he's selling. That doesn't work that way. You're okay. You'll be okay. So just move on to the next sale.
Yeah. So I've been in sales my whole life, and it's not that you get a no, but it's just because they don't know KNOW, right? What it is and how great it is and what it can be. They just don't understand. And that's our fault for not getting that across to them so they understand what they're getting educated. And it's important. Didn't know we were going to do a marketing and sales show today, but
I know, right? But then, okay, if we go that just one quick step farther, I loved Pictionary.
Right.
Okay. Got to keep that in mind. I call love versus passion. So I had passion for Pictionary when I started. That's the instigator, lighting the fire. Oh my gosh, I'm going to create this game. I've got great partners. We're doing this wonderful thing. But there was a lot of times I was just tired. There was a lot of times passion wasn't enough. I didn't want to get up. It was like, to me, passion is great, but it fades. For me, it faded. But over time, passion went to love. I didn't follow my passion. I followed my love. I loved Pictionary. I love what it did for people. I loved our business. I love what we were trying to accomplish. That's what got me up. And that is what I got across to the retailers and the people I talked to. And it was infectious. And they loved my attitude about it. So when you're selling, you're not selling. Show them your passion. Show them what really you're about and why this product is so freaking good. That's going to get you the sales.
Yeah, I totally agree. How long did it take before, because when you were in Nordstrom down on the escalator, was that the 3rd, 4th, 5th year?
2 months.
I mean, you're 2 months into selling the games you're in down in Nordstrom's?
Well, yeah, we started in June 1st. And by September, so whatever, 3 months. I mean, I worked my butt off to get that sale. So yeah, we were It was quintessential startup, 24/7, bottom of the escalator, shipping at night. It was great. I loved it.
How long did it take to actually get to where you started to have people look for the game?
In Seattle, pretty quickly by the holidays.
Oh, really?
Because we kept everything local in Seattle. We didn't sell it to Wisconsin or New Jersey. We kept everything at our fingertips. I figured if I can't physically deliver the game in my car for that first 6 months, we didn't sell them because we wanted to control everything. But it caught on in Seattle very, very quickly. One, because it was a good game. And two, I put it in all these different places and promoted the crap out of it. So by February of 86, which was what, 9 months after we launched, 8 months after we launched, we were already getting national notice because of the job we did in the local market.
And that's actually amazing because most of them don't go that way. So,
I know, right?
Well, it was your passion and love for the game that sold it to people, and that was what it was. I mean, because you could have somebody else sitting there, here's a game, but it doesn't work. Yeah. But your passion, you're still to this day passionate, or we'll say love for the game is still there. Yeah, you can just hear it. So,
and it was, again, I'm going to repeat it again. It was a great game. Me notwithstanding,
it's a great game. It's a great game.
Oh, did I say was?
Yeah.
I'm going to work on my delivery on that. It is a great game.
I was just trying to help you there. It's a podcast.
I'm working on my speaking, so present tense.
Yeah, it is a great game. So,
but
anyway. Before we were on air, we had talked, and you said if somebody asked you, looking back, what would you do differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what did you say?
Personally, I said I would say no more often. Say no to things that didn't serve me, things that I knew weren't good for me or my business. I wouldn't spend as much time on things that I knew, not even instinctively, as I was doing them, I knew it wasn't going to lead anywhere, whether it was a person, a marketing idea, a plan, instead of just having the guts and the courage to say, no, it's okay. I'm going to try a different direction because I know this isn't working. And the way, the metaphor I use is a wine steward, a wine sommelier. You can give this wine guy any glass of wine, and after about 90 seconds, he can tell you what it is. And I asked the guy once, how do you do that? Do you know everything in the world? Are you the smartest wine guy ever made? He goes, no. He goes, I don't know what it is, but I know what it's not. I know what it's not. So that's like saying no. He would smell it. He goes, it's not a Cabernet. So he would eliminate all the Cabernet wines. Oh, it's not a Merlot. He would eliminate those, and he would just pare it down and off, peel the onion to get to what he wanted and knew it was. So you don't have to know exactly where you're going. You don't have to know exactly what you want to be when you grow up. You don't have to know your next marketing plan. But if you can eliminate and say no to those things that aren't serving you or your business, you'll eventually get to where you're supposed to be. And that's, for me, is so much easier than trying to figure everything out. And that's how Pictionary became a success. That's how I wound up going to different retailers. Everything was based on, I would say no more often. And that's when I got to my yeses.
These normally go 30 minutes and we're right there. And, we haven't even got into your book. So would you mind coming back down the road? Yeah. And we can talk more about, because there's a lot of different things I'd like to bring up about your life that you went through. Yeah.
Yeah. See, they're teaching me, what heck,
there it is. Game changer. Got it right there. My hands over here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Too much work.
I got one that's signed. So if you want it, it's extra. I'm just kidding. I'm keeping that one forever.
You got it.
So, this amazing, your story, just, because everybody looks back and they're like, wow, what I went through. And you just said how to say no. One thing I want to add to that is, do you think that we're afraid? Most people just say yes and do these things because they're afraid to make a mistake, or they're afraid to not have the, is that what would you look back? Is that what that answer is? Or was it just different things all the time?
Different things all the time. It was, it's all situational, but it's afraid of making a mistake. It's listening. Here's one of the killers, is listening to other people. You should be doing this. Okay, you're right. I don't want to disappoint you who told me I should be doing X, Y, Z, or maybe you're I think you're smarter than me, so I'm going to do it. Don't listen to other people all the time. If they're smarter than you, of course, take on board what they say. Mentors, absolutely positive, absolutely a great thing. But you can't say no if you don't have the confidence to do so. So when you're starting a new business, when you've got an idea for a business, certainly don't ask the people around you, what do you think? Because if they're not your market, they're going to say, well, I don't think so. And you're going to shut down. And then somebody else is going to do it. So listen to yourself. Don't listen to everybody else. Say no.
Well, I'm going to have you back on, right?
Sure.
You're supposed to say no. Anyway.
No. See, good point. That's a really good point. I'm enjoying this. I love sharing my story. So for me, this is an absolute yes.
Right.
And if it wasn't, I think by now I would.
I know. I appreciate it. I'm just messing around. Got to have fun on these things. Otherwise, don't do it. Yeah. I want to thank you for being on my show today. I really appreciate it. I do want to have you come back. We'll do like 6-8 months from now. We'll figure out some other, and then we'll go more in depth. We'll do a different way of doing it. Look at certain things because you have a lot of knowledge and stories that I'd like to have more on, if that's okay.
Can I tell one quick story?
Sure. Go ahead.
Just this is the final story about intuition, about trusting yourself. So we were successful, exactly as Ed was just saying, in Seattle. And by February, every major game company wanted to license our product. They wanted to manufacturing, distribution, and sales. They pay for it and they pay us a royalty. So that was the licensing. So we had a deal with Milton Bradley, the biggest game company in the world. I'm making $500 a month. That's how old I am. I was driving a shitty 10-year-old car, crappy apartment, and Milton Bradley drops a contract in front of me, and I'm a millionaire. I have to sign this contract. I'm a millionaire. And I've still only sold about 10,000 games. But my intuition said I couldn't trust them. They didn't put certain things in the contract they promised. And while they seemed insignificant, they weren't, because I couldn't trust them. My gut, I'm sitting there, I'm going to Tahiti. I've got a new car. I'm signing this contract. I'm going to be rich. And I'm literally pen to paper, and I couldn't and wouldn't and didn't sign it. The biggest decision of my life, but it didn't feel right. And I knew it. I didn't want to be looking over my shoulder. I didn't want to have to manage them every day. I didn't want to have to wonder if they're lying to me. So I didn't sign the contract, and I was risking failure and Pictionary's failure, but I knew it was the right thing to do. So I didn't do it. I didn't sign it. 2 months later, the universe has a way of rewarding those that follow their intuition, and the universe signed a deal with a joint venture who gave us all the guarantees we needed and a bigger royalty. So I stuck to my guns. It was death-defying, but it worked out.
What year was that?
That was 1986. And I wound up owning the product for another 16 years. So
right. I was going to ask, when did you sell it completely?
2001.
And who was that to?
That was Mattel.
Okay. Was that the same joint venture in the beginning, or just that was?
No, it was another group of guys, and we sold them the IP, and they wrote us a nice little check, and we moved on. After 20 years, I was ready.
All right. It was real. Again, I'll have them edit before. It was really good to get to know you, and I got to know you at Secret Knock, but
for sure,
more in depth today on your story of how Pictionary became about, and I like to give little nuggets about what we're, about how people can use this, and you gave great information today, so I really appreciate it, Rob.
My pleasure. I love sharing. If I can help anybody, I love doing this. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for joining us today on Inner Edison. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and what Rob Angel had to share. If you like what we're doing here, just please follow for more.